banks, to some extent, are following their own guidelines. And they don't have to be as restrictive as they are. So part of the idea here, because the SBA can be more liberal, is to let it be more liberal, so that the banks are put in a competitive disadvantage.
Matt, I'm actually the SBA rep for Long Island.
Yeah.
Just so you know that there's still a fiduciary responsibility. If something like that, and I'll be honest with you, I think it's going to be a long shot, because we're not really set up anymore for that. They'd have to restructure everything. But if they were to do that, there's still a fiduciary responsibility. The idea is that, as Matt said, we can go in and kind of get the banks to start doing what they're not doing. But they would still, it's not like we're going to give somebody who's, hasn't made profits for the last 4 years, they're not going to get a loan. You know what I'm saying? So there's still, we still have a fiduciary responsibility.
But there are a lot of new businesses that are starting up to it, don't have any track record, that would not get a loan. Those are the ones that are probably generating the most jobs. So banks are not giving them any loans. The SBA is not giving them any loans, so they're still stuck in the catch.
Well, I don't want to seem to be too sarcastic, but you've got to lose $25 billion before you're going to get a loan from the federal government.
That's true too.
So you're not losing enough. I'm sorry. Did you want to
That's
say more?
really pretty much it. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. That's a good point. Yes.
Now the president is proposing a tax on banks that are of a certain size. And to me, that just, and Matt, I'd love your insight into this, that to me is another pass down. Because the bank's going to say, okay, we have to pay this tax, let's charge more to our customers. Let's fee them out again to pay for that. I don't understand how that's going to help us in the long run.
I think that's a good point. I have not seen the details, down to that level of detail, to know whether or not what the president is proposing would restrict the ability of banks to pass that cost through, because you can do that legislatively. I don't know whether they're proposing to do that or not. If they are not proposing to do that, then they have to say, yeah, well, okay, that's exactly right. All right, and one last note on health insurance reform. This remains highly fluid for all sorts of reasons. Not the least of which is this race in Massachusetts that's going on today, the election today, which could affect the outcome of this as well. But the House version of the bill, let me just be sure you understand what the two bills do as they stand now. The House version of the bill, with respect to employers must provide health insurance to their employees or pay an 8% fee. That's 8% of payroll. That fee is paid to the government. Businesses that have a payroll below $500,000 would be exempt, and businesses that have 10 or fewer employees would be eligible for tax credits to help them meet that guideline. So that's what the House version says. The Senate version does not require employers to provide health insurance. It doesn't require them to provide health insurance, but businesses that have 50 or more employees have to pay $750 per employee per year. Now this gets to one of the problems they ran into in Massachusetts. Massachusetts required everybody, every citizen of Massachusetts, to buy health insurance. This went into effect about 5 years ago. And it required small businesses to provide health insurance for their employees. But then it said to a small business, if you don't provide health insurance for your employees, you have to pay a fee. And it then set the fee at significantly less than it costs to provide health insurance per employee. And at the time when this was going into effect, actually I moderated a health care panel at the time, and we discussed the sort of illogic of this. I mean, if you're a small business owner and you know your employees are going to get health coverage anyway, and it costs you less to pay the penalty, the fee, than it costs you to provide the health insurance, well, what are you going to do? You know, it's not like you're depriving your employee of health insurance. They're going to get health insurance anyway, but it's going to cost you less. So droves of small businesses did that, and the cost to the government of Massachusetts skyrocketed, and it's multi-billions of dollars, and they can't deal with it. So the setting of this fee, this type of approach, you have to set this fee very carefully or the whole system gets messed up. And most people feel the $750 fee is way too low. So that's what the two bills require as they stand right now. Both bills require individuals to have coverage, and how that is going to play out, this is a subject that's very complicated and we could do a whole separate presentation on. But keep in mind, it's not effective in 2013, the House bill, and 2014, the Senate bill, more likely 2014 in any legislation that they pass in the end. Not necessarily something you have to worry about right now as a business person, but something to pay attention to and something that will affect the business in the future. So, this year, pay attention to these things. From the state, is Long Island getting its fair share when cuts are made? If cuts have to be made, then they should be in proportion so that every part of the state gets treated fairly. That's going to be a big issue for Long Island. Locally, are school districts doing all that they can? Lorraine, are they doing all that they can to reduce costs without reducing quality? Now, you don't want to get in a situation for the long term in which the quality of education on Long Island declines either in reality or perception, because the perception of quality education on Long Island is largely the foundation of this community. That's why people move here, that's why they stay here, they want good education for their kids. You lose that, you're going to lose a lot. So you don't want the quality of education, reality or perception to decline. The tax assessment problem, can it be solved? There'll be a proposed solution during the course of the year. That would be a big deal if they can figure out how to do that. From the Fed's real small business stimulation, and is New York State getting its fair share, because that trickles down to the local level. So from an advocacy standpoint, in general terms, those are the things that you're going to want to pay attention to. And a final note, as I mentioned at the outset, I will be leaving the LIA during the course of this year, between now and the end of September, some period, sometime along that period. So I wanted to just thank Phyllis. Phyllis has been the chairman of the Small Business Council throughout my tenure as president of the LIA. We've had an excellent relationship, a very productive relationship. I've always enjoyed working with Phyllis and working with the Small Business Council. So I wanted to thank Phyllis for everything that she has done for the LIA and for the Small Business Council, and really for small businesses as a whole across Long Island during that period of time and before I got here and after I'm leaving. I want to thank all of you and all the other members of the Small Business Council for your help and support during the time that I have been here. I've always enjoyed speaking at these events and meeting with members of the Small Business Council, trying to figure out ways to make small business life a little bit easier on Long Island. Hopefully we've been able to do that. And as I said at the end, you can sit down now. As I said at the end, if anybody has any questions about anything, oh, wait a minute, I didn't mean that seriously. But all right, yes.
What's your view of the Lighthouse Project, and how would that help or change the numbers you talked about on the screen?
I have been a supporter of the Lighthouse Project from the time they were proposing a 60-story tower. And the reason I believe that the Lighthouse Project is important is that I personally believe that Long Island does need to reinvent itself in part. This was something that Tom Swazi and I talked about a lot, and frankly, he frequently stole my ideas and used them as his own. But I do think that Long Island has an awful lot going for it as it is, but things change. Social patterns change, the world changes, the economies change. You've got to adapt, and I think, say 10% of what we do on Long Island needs to change. One of the things that we have to do is to create destination places, destination downtowns along the railroad, and a place like the Lighthouse Project. I think the Lighthouse Project is important beyond the project itself. I think it's important for Long Islanders' perception of the place that they live. I think it's important for other people's perception of Long Island as a place that's moving and growing and going forward. So, short answer is I think the lighthouse project is very important.
So why does it have